Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, thank you very much, and I'm so delighted that you've joined me for part 3 of our story tonight. And let's continue. I will never forget my mother's wary glances when she saw Candace stroking my back at the lunch table. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat and squirmed inwardly with embarrassment. Candace knew I didn't like being touched, and yet she was making an open display of affection in front of my parents, which was very disquieting indeed. When my mother wasn't looking, I briefly turned around to her and glared at her, whispering to her, "Don't touch me, Candace," but she simply grinned at me like a Cheshire cat who seemed to want to make mischief. "Did Toya tell you how we both met, Mrs. Bouquet?" she asked my mother. "No, she didn't," said my mother. "That is an interesting question. I'm very glad that Toya met you. She really does need some girlfriends. Her best friends went overseas, so she's been on her own. So I'm very glad you two crossed paths. How did it happen?" "Oh, it was so romantic, Mrs. Bouquet," Candace gushed. "Your daughter was struggling to choose the right avocado at the store. I went over to help her. It can be a tricky business looking for that perfect avocado. Some of them can get badly bruised during transit. And believe me, I know my way around a stack of avocados with relative ease. I rarely ever pick up a dud." My mother's face visibly paled. She and my father quickly exchanged rather bewildered glances. I could see my mother's jaw visibly stiffened. She probably wondered if she'd heard right, for she assumed that Candace was just a good friend of mine, that I'd simply invited along for lunch that day. Now she was privately wondering if our relationship was different to what she'd first perceived. I imagined, being a strict Catholic, this news was not going to be ingested easily by her. I had warned Candace about this, and yet her faint promises that she had made me were flying out of the window like the wispy smoke from a chimney. Why was she toying with my parents like this? This was not kind of her. "How nice," said my mother, her words sounding insincere. "I know Toya is very partial to avocado. Even as a little girl she'd have it on toast for breakfast with plenty of pepper and salt. Isn't that right, Toya dear?" I had nodded lamely, wishing the entire ground would swallow me whole. "Yes, I've always liked avocado," I said in a tight, clipped voice. Why was Candace doing this to me, I thought? Why was she making it blindingly obvious how she felt about me? We were only friends. Our relationship had never entered the romantic phrase, and I was sure it never would. I told Candace over and over again, "I don't think I'm gay. We're the best of friends, but I don't think it can ever be more than that between us." Candace had chuckled. "Change the record, why don't you, Toya? Your indomitable resistance is adorable, but you're not fooling anyone, least of all me. You really don't want to admit the truth, do you? When it's staring you blindingly in the face. You are gay, my girl. But don't be afraid of that. As I said, we'll take our relationship slowly. I think your upbringing has made you extremely reticent. Some people take years and years to come out of the closet. Some women have been married to men for an entire lifetime because they haven't had the courage to admit that they're gay. Even in this more open generation, people are coming out of the woodwork very slowly. But one of these days, I'm hoping it'll be you. Honestly, Candace, I don't know where you get this idea that I'm gay from. It makes no sense to me at all. You always say that I'm gay, but I think I would know if I was, don't you? And I think this is wishful thinking on your part, because it's never going to happen," I'd retorted. "You need to find yourself a magic lamp from Aladdin's cave to turn me into a gay person, because that's never going to happen." "So I understand, Candace," said my mother rather gingerly, "that you and my daughter share a lovely apartment together in Manhattan. Is that right? Toya's told me all about it." My mother was obviously fishing for more information about the true nature of our relationship. She was probably silently praying it wasn't what Candace seemed to be implying. Candace, of course, was only too delighted to shout from the rooftops that we were an item, although I would never have described us in that light in a million months of Sundays. "Well, yes, we've been living together for a few months now," said Candace proudly. "We've become inseparable, haven't we, Toyah?" She reached out to hold my hand in hers, which I quickly pulled away, giving her a contemptuous glare. She knew my parents were strict Catholics and seemed eager to tell them that we were a couple, when she knew that that was not true. Why was she being so deliberately provocative, as if she got some kind of rush about setting a cat among the pigeons and causing much upheaval? With a glowing face, Candace looked at me with sickening, adoring puppy dog eyes that at one time had made me feel rather cherished and special, but not any more. Now her idiosyncratic behaviour was making me feel nauseously sick, as if I was stuck in a confined claustrophobic space that was making me feel as if I couldn't breathe. "I'm very, very glad, Mrs. Bouquet, that Toyah agreed to move in with me. It was a monumental decision on her part. It took me much persuasion, let me tell you, but in the end she agreed. I'm so lucky that she did. Don't you worry, Mrs. Bouquet. I'm going to take very good care of your daughter. I want to make her incredibly happy. She'll never want for anything, and that's a promise." My mother looked as if she was about to spit out the roast chicken she was eating that went down the wrong way, so that she began to violently choke, and my father had to slap her back and hand her a glass of water so that the chicken could go down the right way. Excuse me, Candace. I'm very sorry about that. That was not terribly pretty to watch. I think the chicken I ingested went down the wrong passage. I do apologize for my very bad manners." "Don't worry, Mrs. Bouquet. I promise you, you don't have to apologize to me. After all, you're almost family. If the food that you ate got badly trapped, I'd have got it out for you very quickly. I've been trained in the Hynek maneuver, you know. I did a life-saving course once. One of the best things I ever did. When they say knowledge is power, it's absolutely true in my experience. I saved someone once when they got sausage stuck in the back of their throat on a cruise liner. This guy had overloaded his whole plate. He was eating like a half-starved dog. He was literally stuffing sausages down his throat, as if he couldn't eat the food fast enough. And then suddenly his face went all pale, very white. I could see he was choking to death on that sausage. Nobody else appeared to notice. They were completely oblivious to what was going on right under their noses. I quickly ran over to him, did the Hynek maneuver, and the piece of sausage went flying out of his mouth, hitting an old lady square in the face. I hasten to say she wasn't desperately impressed, but I saved that man's life. In the end, he gave me a big gift certificate on the cruise liner as a way of saying thanks. I was so glad to have saved that man's life. It was a great feeling, you know." "Well, that is quite a story. I can imagine how the old woman reacted when she got sausage in her face. It is rather amusing. But goodness gracious me, isn't it incredible to think that a piece of sausage could potentially kill you if it went down the wrong way? But I can absolutely believe it. So with your being around, I'm definitely in safe hands when it comes to ingesting anything. Would you like any more roast chicken, Candace? There's plenty to go around," said my mother, pointing to the tray of carved chicken on the table. "There are also some cheese and bacon grits if you like, and plenty of cornbread if you're still hungry." "Mrs. Bouquet, what can I say? You're an excellent cook, the very best. The food has been absolutely delicious today. Your mashed potatoes are the fluffiest and creamiest I've ever tasted. If I eat any more, I will quite literally pop, Mrs. Bouquet. I'm just so pleased to meet the both of you finally, because you both could potentially become my in-laws. So I needed to meet you, and I'm so glad I finally talked Toyah around, because she's been avoiding my meeting you for some reason. She's told me so much about you both, though." "Oh, well, I hope everything she's told you is good," said my mother, raising a brow. "All very good," said Candace. "Although I'm afraid Toyah did fail to mention what an excellent cook you are, Mrs. Bouquet. And as far as these grits of yours, they are the most delicious I've ever tasted. I knew you were a Southern belle, Mrs. Bouquet, It seems I was right on the money about that."
"My wife is an excellent cook, Candace,"
my father interjected, giving my mother a cheeky wink.
"I would have married her for her mashed potatoes alone," he teased. "But it seems I got the whole package."
"I don't blame you, Mr. Bouquet. Anyone can see your wife is a catch. Now I know where Toya gets her beautiful good looks from. Her Titian colouring and her porcelain complexion. Like mother, like daughter, as they say."
"Well, you got it right. My wife is indeed a southerner. But, believe it or not, she's descended from the Basque people. I don't know if you've ever heard about them before, Candace," said my father proudly. "Most of them have rhesus A negative blood. That's because of the red hair and the fair skin. That was why, when my wife was pregnant with Toya, she had to have a special injection to stop her from miscarrying, because if her baby wasn't the same blood group, her body would have rejected it, as if it was a foreign body. Isn't that fascinating? But yes, the red hair and the blue eyes is the kind of look I like in a woman. I find it incredibly feminine."
"Me too, Mr. Bouquet," said Candace. "Why do you think I was so attracted to your daughter in the first place? When I saw her, I just fell in love. Straight away." When Candace said that, I felt like a seared octopus. This conversation was not going at all well. Candace had let the cat out of the bag, allowing my parents to know how she really felt about me. What were they thinking? I could see my mother and father had yet again exchanged worried, rather bewildered glances together, and I could only imagine what was going on in their heads. Were they wondering if I was gay? I really didn't want them to believe that. I have nothing against gay people, of course, but if you're not that way inclined, you feel naturally affronted when people get your sexuality all wrong. After my mother cleared up our plates, she said, "Toya, I would really appreciate a helping hand if you don't mind with the dessert." "But of course, Mum," I said, raising myself up from the chair. "I'd like to help if I may, Mrs. Bouquet," said Candace.
"Absolutely not, Candace. You're a welcome guest in our home, and I won't hear of it. But I will appreciate Toya's help with putting ice cream on the pudding plates. You do like homemade ice cream, Candace, do you not?"
"Oh, I love homemade ice cream, Mrs. Bouquet. That sounds absolutely brilliant."
"Good. We're having apple pie with ice cream."
"Sounds yummy, Mrs. Bouquet," said Candace appreciatively. "I adore apple pie, and served with homemade ice cream. It couldn't get better than that."
"What on earth is going on with the two of you?"
said my mother, once we were safely confined to her kitchen. She was glaring at me, with her hands firmly parked on her hips.
"Candace is all over you like a rash. You're not really in a relationship with her, are you, love?"
She put her hand on her heart, as if trying to still its rapid beats.
"You're not gay, are you?" "I won't be angry if you are. A lot of people are coming out these days about that kind of thing. Being that way inclined has become pretty mainstream. But I've got to admit, love, you are the last person I would imagine being gay. To have a relationship with a woman, I mean. If you will forgive me, love, this is quite hard for me to digest."
My face became so red, I could feel my cheeks burning. "Mum, please calm down. It's not what you think. Candace and I are just good friends. Even though she seems intent on leading you up the garden path to make you believe otherwise, she's done the same with me." My mother grabbed me by the hand.
"Don't lie to me, Toya. I'm not an idiot. Anyone can see that woman is completely smitten by you. You're living together in an apartment in Manhattan, and by the sounds of things, it's very luxurious. From where I'm standing, this doesn't look at all good. You do know how I feel about gay relationships from a religious perspective, but you are my beloved precious daughter, and I love you regardless of whether you're gay or not. And I will continue to do so and support you in any way I can. But I don't want you to lie to me. That is something I cannot abide."
"Mum, relax. You don't have to lie to Dad about anything, because I'm not gay and I'm telling you the truth. There's one problem, though. Candace believes I am gay."
"Say that again, love," said my mother.
who seemed to have suddenly grown hard of hearing. "I told you, Mum, I'm not gay, but Candace keeps telling me I am. She says I'm in denial because of my staunch religious upbringing that makes me unable to come to terms with my true identity and who I really am. I find it really strange, Mum, because I'm definitely not attracted to her, or to any other woman for that matter. I keep telling her that I'm not gay, but she refuses to listen or to believe me. She keeps telling me she's heard it all before, that I'm lying to myself, and that I've indoctrinated myself into believing I'm straight, when actually she says I'm bisexual."
"Does she now?" said my mother, growing white with indignation. "I think, my dear, you would know if you were gay or bisexual, don't you? I think Candace is highly manipulative, love, very intense, and it scares me half to death that she's making you believe that you're something you're not. It's like she's trying to brainwash you into believing you are gay for her own ends. I suspect she knows very well you're not gay, but she's hoping you'll be malleable enough so she can mold you into the way she wants you to become. I think she wants you to become gay to suit her own needs. She's trying to make you that way inclined. Can anyone make the colour black turn white, and vice versa? I think not. Unless, of course, you're talking about hair dye. Then you can."
"That's what I said to her, Mum, but she's insistent I'm in denial. She makes me doubt my own sexuality, Mum."
"Well, you're not in denial, Toyah dear," said my mother, putting her hand on her head in frustration and staring at me through wide, confounded eyes. "Why is it, Toyah, that you get yourself embroiled in these dreadful, sticky, rather precarious messes? This could only ever happen to you. Let me tell you, Universal Studios should ask for your life story, and they could literally make a movie out of you. First, it's that young man cheating on you for 2 whole years, and now you're living with a woman who's trying to persuade you that you're gay. You can't make this stuff up, can you? I've never heard anything more ridiculous in my entire life. Candace is fixated on you, Toyah, and this situation is treacherously alarming, if not very dangerous."
"Don't worry, Mum. I've not been intimate with her, if that's what you want to know. She's a good friend to me. She says she'll be patient about all that. But there's no way I can go down that road. No way at all, because I'm not gay."
"Sweetheart, wake up and smell the coffee, will you? You're living with a woman in her fancy apartment. She's made it clear she's looking after you. So my guess is that she's paying for everything. She's trying to take ownership of you, and she will make you feel indebted and obligated towards her. That's part of her plan, I'm sure. And before you know it, she'll weave her way into your life with a forceful ferocity, and there will be no escape for you. This could be a very dangerous situation. There are stories, you know, Toyah, about people like the Candaces of this world in crime reports. Obsession can make people do outrageous things. You need to get out of that environment, love. You can't continue sharing an apartment with her. Because if you take advantage of her financial hospitality, in the end she will use it against you. She will remind you of how much you owe her and how indebted you are to her. I'm worried about you, Toyah dear. On the surface, Candace seems like a benign, charming woman. But I think there is a dark, insidious side to her character. I hope I'm wrong. A side that she's hiding very well from you. I mean, why on earth is she living with you when she is very aware that you are not gay? And I'm sure she is aware of that. It beats me she has her heart set on you. Why doesn't she go for another gay woman who is genuinely her way inclined? Why does she pick you? I don't like this one little bit. It's giving me a very uneasy feeling. And the way she was going on this evening about us being her potential in-laws. There is no doubt she has her mind set on marrying you one day. This is very scary, love. You need to take this very, very seriously.
You're not suggesting that Candace would harm me, Mum? Is that what you're saying? I asked, my eyes growing wide in alarm. My mother looked rather worried.
I think that Candace is a nice enough girl. At least I hope she is. I'm just saying, watch your back, love. I don't entirely trust her. You know you can always move home with us if you feel remotely apprehensive about anything. And if it's money you need, you only have to say the word. You could go and get your things and come home at once if you like to live with us. The choice is yours. I'm not going to impose my will on you. But leaving Candace will probably be the best decision you could ever make.
I'll sort it out, Mum. I think you're absolutely right. I need to tell her it's over between us. But believe me, I've told her hundreds of times, but she refuses to listen. You don't know what she's like, Mum. She can be doggedly stubborn. My mother looked very affronted by what I was saying.
Oh, dear, dear me, Toyah. Why do you get yourself into these dreadful messes? Honestly, I don't even know how to help you. I don't think she's going to take the news well when you end it with her. You need to be very careful, love.
My mother's words rung into my head like a warning bell. I knew she was right. Candace was obsessed with me, and this was not normal behaviour. She wanted more from me than I was willing to give. Look, Candace, we need to talk, I said once we arrived home at her apartment after we'd been to my parents'. I don't know what was going on at lunchtime today, and the way you were trying to make my parents think we were an item. I warned you about that. I told you that they're very religious, and that they wouldn't like the idea of me being gay, which you know I'm not. So why would you do a thing like that? Why would you make them think all that stuff about me?
Oh, don't be so paranoid, Toyah, for God's sake. Your parents needed to know how we felt about each other, and I didn't think it did any harm to let them know that you were very special to me. What is wrong with that?
I just don't think this is working. I really don't, Candace. Because I'm not gay for a start. I think I should move out. I don't think we should live together anymore.
Candace rolled her eyes. For God's sake, Toyah, change the record, will you? How many times do we have to go over this? With you, it's like playing Groundhog Day a zillion times. I'm getting bored of this, Toyah.
The following morning, after Candace had left for work, and I had taken a day off from my job because I intended to go and have my hair done, but now a hair appointment was the last thing on my mind, as I had more immediate pressing concerns. I was privately wondering if I should just pack up my suitcases and move out, as far away from Candace as I could possibly get. It would mean leaving my job and just going on the run, as I didn't want Candace to retrace my footsteps. I loved living in New York, of course I did. But sometimes you have to do what you have to do to get out of a difficult relationship. I sat there in Candace's apartment on my bed, because sometimes you have to do what you have to do to get out of a difficult relationship. I was sobbing my heart out as I considered what I should do. And the truth is, I really didn't know. Moving out was a very big deal. I was so comfortably settled in the apartment. I loved my life here in this plush neighbourhood. But my relationship with Candace had reached the end of the road, and I knew I needed to leave. As I was contemplating all of this amidst my tears, there came a surprising knock at the front door. I was tempted to ignore it, but I had been asked by Candace to stay in early in the morning, as she was expecting an express delivery that she'd ordered online. It was an aquarium light for her 50-litre rather exotic fish tank. The knocking was persistent, as if the person had no intention of going away. I was certain it must be the delivery man. Damn, I thought. I really wanted to be left alone to meditate on the kindest way to end my relationship with Candace, who seemed to refuse to listen to a word I said. And I knew if I upped and left, she would somehow manage to find me and worm her way back into my life. I trotted over the gleaming oakwood floor towards the door and opened it rather reticently. A handsome man was standing there in the doorway, with a huge grin on his face. "These are probably for you," he said, holding his bouquet of roses in his hands. "You are Toyah Bouquet, are you not?" "That's me," I said, taking the roses from him rather reluctantly. I knew at once who they were from. Candace always sent me roses when I mentioned that I wasn't gay, or suggested that I'd like to leave. I suppose it was her way of shutting me up, and making me feel rather bad. I frowned as I took the roses from the young man, and then suddenly, against my will, tears spilled down my cheeks. How dreadfully embarrassing this was! I was making a huge scene in front of this stranger who didn't know me from a bar of soap. I was making a spectacle of myself, and I just couldn't help it.
"Are you all right, ma'am?" he asked me, "because if you don't mind my saying, you don't exactly look it. Most people, when they receive a bouquet of roses, are usually happy, but you are not."
"Don't worry about me," I said, trying to laugh. "I'll be fine. It's just been a bad morning, that's all. I must have got out of bed the wrong side. You know what it's like."
"Are you sure about that?"
said the young man, reaching out to give me something to sign.
"You don't look all right. You look quite distraught, actually. Your dog didn't die, did he, by any chance?"
No, that didn't happen. I don't happen to own a dog."
"Whew, that's a relief. When my dog died, I was incredibly distressed. I quite literally shut myself away for an entire week. I loved that dog."
"You did?"
"I did," he admitted. "I'm very soppy like that."
"It's funny," I said. "You're not the usual delivery man that comes here. The one from the Rose and Glen flower shop, are you?"
"No, I'm not," he grinned. "I'm stepping in for my friend. His wife runs the Glen flower shop, and he does the deliveries. So even as I speak, his wife is now in hospital delivering a baby, with her husband stoically at her side. So me, being a prize mug, that I am, agreed to help him with his deliveries this morning. But this is the last one of the day, I'm glad to say."
"You're a good friend to him to do that. Thanks for these."
"You don't look happy to receive those roses, if you don't mind my saying so. You look quite affronted, as if the roses themselves offend you."
"It's not the roses. I actually love roses. They're my favourite flower. It's the sender. It's a long story," I said. "You really don't want to know the half of it."
"I'm a good listener, and if I listen to your troubles, I won't have to concern myself with my own. You know the saying, a trouble shared is a trouble halved. I tell you what, do you know the coffee shop over the road? Artful Aromas, I believe it's called. They do a mean chocolate lava cake, and when I say mean, I mean mean. That stuff melts in your mouth like butter. If you want to join me in the next 10 minutes, I will be there. And the lava cake and anything else you have will be on me. I will buy you as many pieces as you like. When my dog died, my mother brought me to Artful Aromas to get their cake, and I didn't want to go. In fact, I refused. But when I ate that chocolate lava cake, I was a new man. The world seemed like a brighter place, almost instantly. So I know that chocolate lava cake will lift you out of the doldrum. My mother always says that, when she's in a dark place, her go-to pick-me-up is that chocolate lava cake. It works a treat. It did for me. No wonder chocolate is considered the gift of the gods."
"Your mother's not wrong. Chocolate can save your life. It has mine from time to time, when I've been in a bad place. But I have tasted the Artful Aromas chocolate lava cake, and you're right. It is the absolute best."
"There you go, then. I think that chocolate lava cake is calling your name. Surely you can't resist," said the young man. "So I'll see you then?" he asked, as I signed the delivery.
"I'll think about it, but I'm liking the idea more and more." I said goodbye to the young man, sure that I would likely never cross paths with him again. I was hardly going to join a perfect stranger for chocolate lava cake at the coffee shop. It was not the kind of thing that I was partial to doing. I glanced briefly at the note on the bouquet and let out a huge, exasperated sigh. "I love you, Toyah, with all my heart. You're my entire world. All my love, Candace." I felt so miserable as I read the note. Candace knew how to use emotional blackmail to her full advantage to get exactly what she wanted out of me. In my indignant anger, I threw the bouquet of roses across the floor. They scattered and broke into a confetti of petals and broken stems. Before I knew it, I picked up my purse and made my way down the luxuriously carpeted corridor. all the way to the sleek avant-garde glass lift. The young man who had delivered my roses had been so nice, I persuaded myself, what harm would it do to have a delicious piece of lava cake with him? I was alone in my apartment, not knowing what to do about my current dilemma. It would be good to have a listening ear. And besides, the thought of indulging in some chocolate lava cake was very appealing indeed, and was an invitation I could no longer resist. Besides, it would be good to get out of the apartment for a while, and the coffee shop was an uplifting place where for a brief moment you could cast your cares away and pretend you were someone else, and that didn't have to be a bad thing, did it? Before I knew it, I'd crossed the road and entered the coffee shop. I glanced at my cell phone. It was 11:30 a.m., and there was a hub of activity going on in the shop. I could smell coffee beans, and when I glanced at the little round tables covered with red and white check tablecloths, the young man got up and was waving at me enthusiastically. His face lit up as if he was genuinely pleased to see me, which made me smile. "Someone's keen to see you," said the waitress, gesturing for me to follow her. She handed me and the young man a menu, and hurriedly scuttled away. "Be with you in a second," she said. The young man was standing and gesturing for me to sit down. I lowered myself into a very comfortable upholstered wrought-iron chair. I removed my jacket and put it on the back of the chair, and hung my bag on its side. "I wasn't sure you were going to come," said the man, "but I'm very glad you did, and I really mean that. I thought I was going to have to eat the chocolate lava cake all on my own, without good company, and that would be a travesty," he said, making a face. "Chocolate lava cake needs to be eaten in good company. I've had quite the entertaining and eventful morning, delivering flowers to people. That part of this job I didn't mind at all, but I hate being a delivery man. It's really not nice. I hate being caught up in traffic. I find that part of the job incredibly unpleasant." "Well, I can imagine. I don't think I'd have the patience. So you're wondering why I came, are you?" "It was the chocolate lava cake that brought me here," I teased. "I couldn't stop thinking about it after you left." The man chuckled. "And to think I thought it was my charming personality that you thought was so irresistible. But it was the chocolate lava cake, as it always is. That's exactly what my mother would say. If chocolate is on offer, you can pretty much get her to do almost anything." "Oh, I am sorry," said the young man. "I do apologize for my rudeness. Where are my manners? I haven't introduced myself to you yet. The name is Flint Chevalier." "Wow, that's an unusual name. I've never met a Flint before." "It's my mother," Flint chuckled. "She wanted to call me something rather unusual. That is easy on the tongue, if you know what I mean. And she figured out that Flint could not be shortened. But your name is Toya, is that right? I saw it on the paperwork for those roses. So you have an unusual name as well, much like my own. It can't be easily shortened. And that's a good thing." "That's right." "I like it. It suits you very much. So how about that chocolate lava cake?" he asked as the waitress approached our table, with an expression of expectation on her face. "What are you going to have?" he asked me. "Your chocolate lava cake, but what are you going to have with it? May I suggest a double thick chocolate milkshake? Those two go hand in hand together superbly." "How can I resist? That sounds great." After the waitress had scuttled away, Flint said to me, "Are you going to tell me, Toya, what's been eating you up? You can tell me to mind my own business if you like. But in my experience, sometimes telling a stranger what is ailing you can be an awfully big help." "But why do you even care?" I asked. "I don't even know you. Aren't there enough problems in the world than to go worrying about other people's? That's why I think half the people in the world don't want to listen to the news. They don't want to be weighed down with all that negativity. And you know what? I agree with them wholeheartedly. I never listen to the news myself. If there's a war going on somewhere, I tune out. I don't want to have to be grieving other people's tragedies, because it will just make me sink into a deep depression." "It's a funny thing that you should say that," said Flint, "because I agree 100%. For a start, I never tune in to mainstream media, because they tell us what they want us to hear. They're highly manipulative,
lie all the time to suit their own ends. But like you, I don't want to tune into the world's troubles. As like the Titanic, it will take me down. But do you know what I find, Toya? In my experience when I'm talking to someone like yourself, when I learn about your troubles, mine don't seem half so bad.
You troubles? You don't look as if you have any, I said, looking at Flint skeptically. You look like one of those people that has all the answers and has your life all sorted out so perfectly.
Well, don't be so easily fooled. Appearances can be very deceptive. Believe me, I've been through some stuff, and I've got a few issues that I'm dealing with right at the moment, if you must know.
So go on, tell me. What's eating you up? Then I'll tell you what's eating me. Don't you think we've got a deal?
Deal? Well, you know, let me tell you. All right, here goes. I work for a large corporate company. My boss happens to be a woman.
And you've got a problem with that, have you?
Of course not. But, unfortunately, she's got the hots for me. She's a married woman and is constantly making advances at me, making it very clear that she fancies me.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this. You're worried that if you reject her advances, that you can forget any promotions.
That's pretty much it. But then I came up with what I thought was a fabulous idea. I told her I was a very happily married man. It was the best thing I did, because she stopped making advances at me almost at once.
Well, there you go then. Your problem's all sorted out.
No, it's not. It's only just started. You see, there's an office party. Pretty soon, it's coming up in the next week or so. We're expected to bring our significant others along. She keeps saying to me she can't wait to meet my wife. But what am I going to do? Because I haven't anyone to bring along with me. And when she sees there isn't a woman on my arm, claiming to be my wife, she'll know I've been lying all along. And I'll be back to square one, because then she'll begin to prey on me again.
Do you even like her? I asked curiously.
Absolutely not. There's nothing charming about her whatsoever. She's vulgar, uncouth, and dresses completely tastelessly. She's mutton dressed up as lamb. The woman's in her 40s, for goodness sake. I'm half her age.
You're kidding me. That's pretty brazen of her. But you're right. If you turn up at the office party without a wife, she's going to know you're lying.
My point exactly.
I'll do it for you, I said impulsively. I'll pretend to be your wife if you like.
You will? I don't know what to say.
Well, I'm quite a good actress, you know. And besides, it'll be fun. So there, your problem's all sorted out.
Well, I don't know how to thank you. You've quite literally saved my life. Now, are you going to tell me your problem or not?
I proceeded to tell Flint all about my issues with Candace. I told him how I was living in a luxurious apartment with her, how she was insistent that I was gay, when I so obviously was not, how persuasive she was, and how I tried to leave her, but she had become like a stumbling block to me.
Bloody hell, said Flint. Oh, I must apologize for my rude language. But you've got problems. This woman is seriously fixated on you. You've told her you're not gay, and that hasn't worked. Do you by any chance happen to know how Candace ended her last relationship? That might give you a clue on how you should end your relationship with her.
I took a sip of my rich creamy chocolate milkshake and bit into the chocolate lava cake. This is excellent, I said. Oh, it's delicious.
It is too.
Do you know, the last thing I want to do, Flint, with all this sweetness in my mouth, is to talk about Candace. Let's see. Candace was besotted about this woman, that she dated for about 6 years. She was very much in love with her, wanted to spend the rest of her life with that woman. But the woman cheated on her with another lady, and then ended up getting married to the woman she cheated with. So Candace was completely devastated about that. It hit her really hard.
There you go, then. That's your escape route. You need to do the very same thing. You need to let Candace know that you've fallen in love with somebody else. That way she'll be forced to let you go. How about I pretend to be the person you've been having an affair with?
You mean you'll tell her that you're my boyfriend? You'd actually do that for me?
Well, you're pretending to be my wife. Why should the offer not be returned to you? I should extend you exactly the same courtesy. What do you say?"
"Well, it's a brilliant idea. But do you think we can actually pull it off?"
"Of course I do. I don't even have to pretend, because I really like you, Toyah."
I blushed. "Do you know, I think it might just work, your plan, I mean. Because if I have someone else, then what can she do about it? I mean, she couldn't do anything when her ex-girlfriend was with another woman. She actually remained fixated on her girlfriend for a long time, even after the woman got married. Candace has a hard time letting go, if you know what I mean."
"That's why we need to be cruel to be kind. It's horrible to have to pretend and to lie that you've cheated on her, but it's the only way she might let go of her possessive grip over you."
"I agree, but she's not going to take it at all well." That was the way that Flint came into my life, and we fell for each other hard, and genuinely became an item, without even having to try. Within a month of dating, we'd actually moved in together. I would normally have been reluctant about such a hasty decision, but I'd never met anyone quite like Flint before. When I took him home to meet my parents, my mother warmed him at once.
"You've struck gold, love. He's a keeper."
It was very bizarre how things just worked out for us. You'd think I'd be relationship shy and very reluctant after my 2 catastrophic relationships before, but I just knew that Flint was good for me. I felt terrible telling Candace that I'd been seeing somebody else. That had gone down like a lead balloon. I felt very bad lying to her like this, but I knew that this was the only successful out for me. I could see no other way in cutting the cord between us, because she would successfully always drag me back if I chose to break up with her and went my own way. I'm glad to say that Flint was very convincing. He played his part as the besotted boyfriend quite masterfully.
"I'm in love with Toyah," he told her. "We did not want to break this to you, but it is what it is. I'm very sorry, Candace."
"But how could you do this to me, Toyah?" said Candace. "We were so good together." "No, we weren't, Candace. We were only ever friends. Surely you get that. I told you I was never gay. I never have been. You refused to accept it." I had played my part in helping out Flint in persuading his boss that I was his wife, and she completely believed me. She was no longer making advances towards Flint, but had set her eyes on a handsome young junior member of staff, so Flint felt rather guilty about that someone else had to be subjected to his boss's amorous flirtations, but at least it wasn't him. So there we are. That's the end of part 3. Part 4 is tomorrow night. I look forward to you joining me then. Until next time, goodbye and good night.